Shalom, my friends. So in this video, I'm going to show you a call that I called into the Line of Fire, Dr. Brown show, where I was able to successfully expose Dr. Brown's hypocrisy and effectively debunk his method of determining which prophecies are exclusively about the Messiah, son of David, and which are not. And I wanted to share with all of you how you can also do this. You can call into Dr. Brown's show and debunk him in a similar manner. It's been done. I did this live on his show, and we're going to see it in action. So what I wanted to highlight before we got into the video is I found this comment very humorous. As I was doing my questions to Dr. Brown on his show, this Patrick Crockett fellow says, referring to me, he's a Tovia Singer disciple who just tries to play word games. Get him out of here. Why is this so funny? Because this argument isn't a Tovia Singer argument. I developed this argument as a way to expose Dr. Brown. I'd love if Tovia Singer or someone else who actually is in the arena to be able to debate Dr. Brown. I mean, on my channel, I have been asking Dr. Brown for a debate, but either the news hasn't gotten to him, or actually on his show years ago, I did ask if it would be possible for us to have a formal debate, and Dr. Brown turned it down. So for those who, have rabbinic ordination, who Dr. Brown would care to debate, this is for you, because Dr. Brown might actually choose to debate you, but not me, since I'm not a rabbi or well known enough for Dr. Brown to debate. So that's fine. We can still expose him in this fashion. Expose his hypocrisy. So we're going to get right into the video now.
3, 4, truth. Let's go to Yehuda in Brooklyn. Thanks for calling the Line of Fire.
Shalom Aleichem.
Aleichem shalom.
Hear you again, Dr. Brown.
Thanks. Yes, sir.
Thanks for having me. I had a question about the House of David in the Tanakh and how it relates to the future Messiah. To start off, I just wanted to know, we're in agreement that in the Tanakh, when it mentions the House of David, that would be inclusive of the Messiah, son of David?
Yes. I mean, ultimately, he's included, the promises to the House of David culminate in the promise of the Messiah. Yes, sir.
Awesome. So when I read Zechariah chapter 12, right, which is a future prophecy about the Messiah, I think we both agree, since you agree with me that the House of David would be inclusive of the Messiah. So when I look at Zechariah 12:10, it says, I will pour out upon the house of David, which includes the Messiah, right?
No. To be clear.
So immediately he's reneging on his response. And keep in mind, I was very clear about what I was referring to. I said, can we agree that the House of David would be inclusive of the Messiah, son of David? I opened my question with that, right? I never said that the House of David only referred to the Messiah, son of David, which Dr. Brown's going to try to strawman later, right? I was very clear, and he agreed with me that the plurality of people, the House of David, is inclusive of the future Messiah, son of David. So then I gave him a messianic prophecy in Zechariah chapter 12, which, as is commonly known, is a prophecy that Christians also agree is a future prophecy about the future Messiah. Dr. Brown agrees I can show a video. I did a video, watch this video too. This is really a supplement to what I made in this video. So here's where he admits that Zechariah 12, of course, is a future messianic prophecy.
Now, I'm going to read in Hebrew and get into English a verse that is very familiar for those who deal with messianic prophecy, a verse that is very familiar for those reading the New Testament and know it's quoted in John 19, part of it.
So you see, this is Zechariah 12:10. So clearly, he knows this is about the Messiah. He admits it, right? Very famous messianic prophecy that he agrees. But now he's kind of rolling back and saying, well, the House of David, in this case, doesn't refer to, it's not inclusive of the Messiah, son of David. So right off the bat, we exposed his hypocrisy. But it gets better. Keep watching.
House of David does not always include the Messiah. In other words, when God rebukes the house of David for its sin, it's not rebuking. It's in Isaiah the 7th chapter when the house of David is moved, in fear. That doesn't include the Messiah. The promises to the house of David culminate in the Messiah.
So it's very interesting that Dr. Brown is mentioning Isaiah chapter 7 regarding the house of David. Fascinating to me, right? And guys, if you like what you're seeing, please subscribe to the channel. And if you're already subscribed, please share with others, because I want this word to get out. I want Dr. Brown to be, this to be known, so that maybe we can get a formal debate, right? Yes, I can call into his radio show. You can call into his radio show, but it would be really nice to get this publicized so that we can expose the hypocrisy that Dr. Brown is presenting regarding this. So just to highlight that even further. So here he's referencing Isaiah chapter 7, where it says, and he said, "Listen now, O house of David, is it little for you to weary men, that you weary my God as well?" This is a very famous passage, right? Because this is right from, the New Testament obviously quotes the next verse out of context. This is the infamous supposed virgin birth. I can do another video regarding that. But here's what's fascinating. Here he is disowning any messianic connection regarding the house of David, referring to the future Messiah, son of David here, right? He just referenced Isaiah 7. This is where it mentioned the house of David. But then in the very next verse, he's all about it. This is all about the Messiah, right? He might admit that it has fulfillment in King Ahaz's time, which I appreciate. However, he is all about this having future fulfillment in the Messiah, right? So here, he's telling me that this house of David has literally no connection to the Messiah, son of David. But here, in the very next verse, where it doesn't even mention David at all, right? That's everything, that's the whole, literally the first prophecy in the book of Matthew, that obviously Matthew takes out of context to try to establish Jesus as having some sort of fulfillment regarding the supposed virgin birth. Not to mention the fact that the New Testament immediately starts in the book of Matthew trying to establish Jesus as having some sort of Davidic lineage of the house of David, right? So he's already going completely against what the New Testament says regarding this and just messianic prophecy in general. But he also goes against what he says himself about Isaiah chapter 7 and how it relates to the Messiah in Isaiah chapter 7. Check it out regarding the house of David. This is from where he's describing Isaiah 7:14 specifically. Listen.
And Matthew has Isaiah 7, 9, and 11 in front of him, a glorious messianic section, and sees how this prophecy of a miraculous birth to the house of David, to one who will be called Emmanuel, finds its fulfillment. You see, it's never been fulfilled. It's never been filled up to the full. Finds its fulfillment in the person of the Messiah, Jesus, Yeshua, the Messiah.
Did you hear that? Do a little rewind. You can do it on your own. I'm not going to, make you listen to it again. But you heard it specifically from his mouth. He is divorcing the concept of the Messiah, son of David, from Isaiah 7:13, saying, no, this is just talking about the promises to the house of David. It has nothing to do with, it's not inclusive of the Messiah, son of David. Then he uses that same rhetoric to try and argue that the house of David is referring to this sign that will be born that he claims can only, refer to Jesus in that context. Or maybe he, either way, if he has, if he wants to say that it refers to, King Ahaz's time, great. The point is, he is focusing on this referring to the Messiah, son of David. So he's already contradicting himself straight off the bat. And what's interesting, in this video here, he just said that Isaiah 7, Isaiah 9, and Isaiah 11 all culminate in this messianic picture. Okay, fine. You want to argue that? That's fine. But guess what they all have in common with each other, right? They all give a reference. Obviously, he's talking about where it says, to him who increases authority and peace without end on David's throne to his king. So he acknowledges that this can also have fulfillment in King Hezekiah. Fine, great. I can respect him for that. But still, even if we use a messianic context for the future, right, which I have no problem with, what indicates that? David's throne. That is the common thread. House of David. Isaiah 7:13. And then what do you have here? In Isaiah chapter 11, the stem of Jesse, right? The father of David, the most famous messianic prophecy. Even he recognizes this. That is the common thread. That is how we know the specificity that this is speaking about the individual of the Messiah in, the context of the future, right? So his standard, according to this, would appear, he's, on the one hand, he agreed with me at the beginning, yes, the house of David is inclusive of the Messiah, son of David. On the other hand, now he's saying, oh no, not in every context. And then even the context that he brought up in Isaiah 7, in this video, he admits that it is indicative of, inclusive of the Messiah, son of David, that it does indicate that. So he's already contradicted himself in so many ways, but it gets better, my friends. Keep watching.
But every reference to the house of David does not include the Messiah. Of course not.
Okay, well, let's rewind just a couple verses just to see the context of the house of David here, right? It says in chapter 12, verse 8, on that day, right, future prophecy, the Lord shall protect the inhabitants of Jerusalem. The weakest of them shall be on that day like David, and the house of David shall be like angel, like it says, Ki Elohim, like the angel of the Lord before them. So in that verse, does the house of David refer to including the Messiah that will be like?
Oh no, certainly not. No, they're the ones that are repenting, and they're the ones that are being empowered by God to fight. But they're not the Messiah there, for sure.
So he's interesting. So this is something I agree with, right? I'm not saying that this is where he's sort of building up his straw man argument against me. I was simply asking if this verse here where it says that the house of David shall be like, it says, Ki Elohim, right? Be like angels, like the angel of the Lord before them, right? That's the context here, that the house of David is being saved. The house of David is, mighty and defeating its enemies. So the reason why I brought that up is that this is clearly in a future messianic context. This isn't talking about a sinful, because he was trying to argue hypocritically that this was, in Isaiah 7:13, that this refers to some sort of sinful group of the house of David, including King Ahaz, which would be excluding who he believes the Messiah to be, Jesus. And then, of course, he double spoke when he spoke in this video, and then he did say that it does include who he believes is Jesus. So yeah, aside from that contradiction, he further is contradicting himself in the context of here, because this is talking about the house of David in a righteous state. So if the house of David is in a righteous state where they're literally likened to Elohim, right? I just found that supremely interesting that Dr. Brown was unwilling to apply the Messiah, son of David, to the house of David being described here in Zechariah chapter 12, verse 8, where they're all described as being like God. I thought that would be, of course, Dr. Brown's trying to deify the Messiah, right? And it's not like he would translate it as like God, right? The word is Ki Elohim, so this says like angels, but you'll see in some Christian translations, you'll see like God. But really what it's referring to is just this idea that the house of David is going to be saved ultimately. And why would that not include the Messiah, right? Especially since we've already seen Dr. Brown admit that it can. So let's keep going.
Sure. That's why it mentions that because it's parallel with the inhabitants of Judah. It's a plural people there. It's a plural people.
I guess what's confusing me is, since we both agreed at the beginning of this conversation that the house of David would be inclusive.
No. No.
And
I
this is
said
a
to you.
messianic prophecy, right?
I said to, okay.
About the
Let's
future
be clear.
Messiah, right?
What Dave
He's not admitting that, of course, it's the messianic prophecy. He doesn't want to acknowledge that now because he's realizing that, yeah, I never contradicted anything that I said. So the best he can do is straw man my argument. And you'll see he's going to continue to try and say something that I didn't say.
David's mentioned almost 1,000 times in the Bible. A couple of times when it says David, like Ezekiel 37 or Hosea 3, it's referring to the Messiah, okay? Otherwise, all the other times when it says David, it just means David. When it says house of David, it's talking about his house, his dynasty, okay? Those that are part of the Davidic household, all right? When it refers to house of David, that's who it's referring to over and over and over and over and over. When it says house of David, it never means the Messiah, but the promises to the house of David culminate in the Messiah. That's what I thought you were asking at the outset. So house of David, that's the people. The promises to the house of David culminate in the Davidic Messiah. So there's nothing confusing. When it says house of David, it means the people.
Yes, the people include the Messiah, son of David. That's what he's making this false dichotomy, saying that the promises to the house of David and the people of the house of David are like two separate entities. No, they're not mutually exclusive, right? Is the Messiah, son of David, a person? Of course. So why are you making this false dichotomy that the promises to the house of David are independent of the people of the house of David? That's the problem. So anyway, let's keep going.
House of David never means Messiah in the Bible. Show me one time.
What I was asking is if it was inclusive of it. And I agree. You mentioned Hosea 3, verse 5. You mentioned Ezekiel chapter 24, verse
37, 24. Yeah.
Right, exactly. I agree. Those are both passages that we agree refer to the future Messianic king because it refers to a Davidic king.
Yeah.
So that's a standard that we have here. So why would it be different when we look at Zechariah 12 and it mentions the house of David?
So this is the key to everything in this conversation. Dr. Brown, laid out everything for me on a silver platter to refute his position, right? Because he acknowledges, and I've done videos on this, right? I did a whole video about what is messianic prophecy, differentiating between the generic and the specific, David their king, right? So he mentioned Hosea chapter 3 and Ezekiel chapter 37. This video goes into detail about those prophecies. And I said, if I talk to Dr. Michael Brown, he would agree with me that those prophecies, when it mentions a Davidic king who will rule at the end of days, that refers only to the Messiah, son of David, and no one else. That is as specific as it gets. Both of us are in agreement about that. So I'm challenging him. I'm saying, look, I agree with you. Those two prophecies, it says David their king, right? And what's very interesting too about this is, number one, the timeline says that the Messiah, David their king, is going to come after the final exile, not before the destruction of the Second Temple, contrary to what Dr. Brown teaches. But then, and more importantly for this discussion, it says afterwards the children of Israel shall return and seek the Lord their God and David their king, and they shall come trembling to the Lord and to his goodness at the end of days. They are mentioned separately from each other. This passage would indicate that David their king is not synonymous with God. Chas v'shalom, right? It doesn't say David their God, right? So too with Ezekiel chapter 37, right? Once again, talking about the end of days context, right? Saying that after all of Israel is gathered to the land, right? I will make the children of Israel take them from the nations where they have gone and gather them from every side. So this is speaking about the future messianic age, right? After all the Israel is gathered. And it says, my servant David shall be king over them. And one shepherd shall be for them all, and they shall walk in my ordinances and observe my statutes and perform them. Once again, nothing in this passage indicates that David their king, my servant David, is synonymous with God. So we have two prophecies that Dr. Michael Brown brought up that he agrees indicate specifically the individual of the Messiah, son of David, and no one else. Ezekiel chapter 37, verse 24, which we just looked at. I want you to look at these for reference. I did a whole video about these, right? So here it is, Ezekiel chapter 37, verse 24. Dr. Brown agrees. David shall be king over them, my servant David. That's only about the Messiah and no one else. And then you have Hosea chapter 3, verse 5, where it says, they shall seek their Lord and David their king. So we agree. Now, I'm challenging him. I'm saying, well, here we have Zechariah chapter 12, which we also agree is referring to a future messianic context. But now when it says the house of David, right? Now Dr. Brown is saying, well, no, that's not about the Messiah. That's not inclusive of the Messiah, right? And I'm not saying, as he's going to falsely accuse me of stating, that the house of David is exclusively speaking about the Messiah, son of David. I never made that claim. I asked from the outset, is the Messiah, son of David, a part of the house of David? That's what I asked him, and he agreed. And now he is backtracking, and now he's going to try and accuse me of saying that the house of David, that I was trying to say that the house of David is only about the Messiah and no one else. And I never made that statement. So you'll see what he tries to do.
Why all of a sudden are you saying that this Davidic?
I'm not saying all of a sudden.
Them would be not including.
Okay, you're obviously.
You understand?
Yeah. So let's try once more. There's nothing ambiguous. When you see House of David, Beit David, over and over and over, it is not talking about the Messiah ever in the Hebrew Bible, not a single time. However, the promises given to the House of David, which is what I thought you were asking at the outset, culminate with the Messiah. But the Messiah is not the House of David. The Messiah is the Davidic Messiah. So show me, do a little study, okay? And then you can call back. Go through every reference to Beit David in the Tanakh, every single reference, and show me any one place where Beit David does not mean the Davidic dynasty and the people, and where it specifically means Beit David means the Messiah. You won't find a single one.
And I completely agree, because that wasn't my argument. This is Dr. Michael Brown making a straw man argument, because I never said in the entirety of this conversation that the house of David refers exclusively to the Messiah, son of David, and no one else. What I did say is that the house of David is inclusive of the Messiah, and Dr. Michael Brown agreed at the beginning, and then he took it back because his interpretation of Zechariah chapter 12 goes against that premise, because he's trying to deify the Messiah by making a standard that doesn't exist in the Tanakh, right? Once again, he agreed that Hosea chapter 3, verse 5, when it says David their king, refers to the Messiah, son of David, and no one else. He agreed that in Ezekiel chapter 37, my servant David, who will be king over them, that refers to the Messiah, son of David, and no one else. There's no indication in either of those prophecies that the Messiah must be God in the flesh or anything like that. So we have a consistent standard. And then he completely abandons that standard when he looks at Zechariah chapter 12 and he says, no, forget about David, forget about the house of David. The Messiah has nothing to do with that. It's just anytime God is being spoken of in some sort of metaphorical personified form, we have to assume that that's hyper-literal and that can only be Jesus, even though it would be mentioned apart from the house of David. So he wants to have his cake and eat it too, because he knows that his interpretation of Zechariah 12 and chapter 14, which he will bring up, do not align with what the house of David represents everywhere else in the Tanakh, which is inclusive of the Messiah, son of David, ultimately.
So there's nothing inconsistent.
I didn't say that it meant exclusively the Messiah.
Not exclusively.
To be clear.
Not exclusively.
That wasn't my argument. I was saying that the house of David, if it's speaking in a future context, would include the Messiah, son of David. I didn't say that Beit David referred exclusively to the Messiah, son of David. Does that make sense?
Okay, so now we're a little closer to a discussion. But
yeah, we're a little closer to a discussion because you were trying to do a straw man argument, right? Now, he's not admitting that he misunderstood or he was trying to make up something. Look, if we give him the benefit of the doubt, maybe he just didn't understand. But I was clear from the beginning, so it's really on him if he didn't understand the argument, because I was very clear that I never stated that the house of David was exclusive to the Messiah, son of David, and only referred to the Messiah, son of David. Never made that statement in the entirety of this discussion.
But house of David in the future does not mean that when it talks about them in general, why does it say house of David and inhabitants of Judah? It's just talking about the groups of people, those that are living in Jerusalem. Those are the ones repenting. Those are the ones mourning and crying out. Those are the ones being empowered by God to fight as they look on the one they pierced, right? Which,
I guess I'm trying to ask, what is your standard for determining how a prophecy, because you agreed with me that Hosea 3 verse 5, when it says David their king will rule at the end of days, that's a prophecy about only...
It doesn't say house of David. House of David is a plural people.
I didn't say it had to refer to the house of David. You're misrepresenting what I'm saying. I'm saying that I asked you at the beginning if the house of David included the Messiah, son of David, in a future context in Zechariah 12. I didn't say that it only referred to the house of that.
Right, so it does, right, so real simple. Real simple. The term house of David never speaks of Messiah specifically. So when Zechariah 12 focuses on an individual who's the one that comes in Zechariah 14 and puts his feet in Jerusalem, so is the Lord incarnate, okay? When it speaks of an individual.
So this is interesting. So now he's bringing Zechariah 14 into the forefront, right? So what's fascinating about this is, so this gives us more details, and it says, I will gather all the nations to Jerusalem to wage war, and the city shall be captured, the houses shall be plundered, and the women shall be ravished, and half the city shall go forth into exile, and the rest of the people shall not be cut off from the city. So you see that there's going to be a war, and there's going to be many casualties in Jerusalem, right? That this is not going to be good for people. There's going to be mourning, right? That's when we look at Zechariah 12, that's where we get this idea of of course they're going to be mourning, because there was a war and there were many casualties in Jerusalem, right? Of course. So there you go. There's your answer, right? That's where you get this idea of the mourning of the house of David. They're not mourning about some individual from over 2,000 years ago. They're putting all their mourning into the mourning of somebody from 2,000 years ago. What in the world? That's all. We're going to just completely ignore the fact that there was, a war going on in this future messianic prophecy before the Messiah is revealed, right? Who is going to be of the house of David, right? And we're just going to ignore that. And we're just going to say, oh, let's, ignore the reference to the house of David and say that, let's try and, look at some personification of God. There's no standard for that. Once again, in all the prophecies that me and Dr. Brown agreed with, right? Hosea 3 verse 5, right? Does not indicate that the Messiah will be God, David their king, right? He's mentioned separate from God. In Ezekiel chapter 37, verse 24, same thing. My servant David shall be king over them. So then he's going to Zechariah 14, and he's saying that this can only refer to the Messiah because it's speaking about, there's no reference to David in Zechariah 14 regarding that, right? It's not there. If we want to see the more specific reference to the, Messiah would be when it describes the house of David, which he admitted in this video here. We can watch it again. He's explicitly saying that the house of David in Isaiah chapter 7 is indicative of the future Messiah. You want to say the promises versus the people? The Messiah is a part of the house of David. What are you doing making this false dichotomy that the promise of the house of David is independent of the people, of the Messiah, who is a person? Come on.
But that which was never fulfilled remains a messianic prophecy to be fulfilled. And Matthew has Isaiah 7, 9, and 11 in front of him, a glorious messianic section, and sees how this prophecy of a miraculous birth to the house of David, to one who will be called Emmanuel, finds its fulfillment. You see, it's never been fulfilled. It's never been filled up to the full. Finds its fulfillment in the person of the Messiah, Jesus.
He says the house of David. He uses that phraseology to connect Isaiah 7:14 to the concept of the house of David, and that's how he tries to emphasize that this has some sort of messianic fulfillment. Goodness sakes, Dr. Brown, you're all over the place, man. Come up with a consistent standard. This is what he's doing. He's painting the target around the arrow and saying bullseye. He has no standard aside from his confirmation bias of what it says in the New Testament. If you want to see the standard for who the Messiah is supposed to be, watch this video, right? What is messianic prophecy? Differentiating between the generic and the specific, David their king, and you will get a consistent picture of how messianic prophecy is understood. Whereas Dr. Michael Brown has no consistent narrative of how to differentiate between messianic prophecy and prophecy that is more generic and not specific to the individual of the Messiah, son of David. He just has no standard for it, aside from, he wants the Messiah to be God. That's not a standard that is agreed upon, especially with regards to the prophecies we are speaking about.
You can speak of the house of David and the Davidic Messiah. There's no contradiction. So the house of David is the people, the descendants of David, the royal family. And the Messiah himself, is he part of the house of David? Yes. Is he separate from the house of David? Yes. But
that's it. That is literally him admitting he has no standard. Is he a part of the house of David? Yes. Is he not a part? He's saying he's trying to have his cake and eat it too. Is the Messiah a part of the house of David or not? It doesn't say in any of these prophecies that the Messiah must be God incarnate. He completely pulled that out of thin air because that's what he read about in the New Testament. The Tanakh gives us no necessity that the Messiah must be God in the flesh, right? None. Why would we? You can watch it. You can watch the video again. If you don't believe me, study this video again, and you'll see there is, based on what we have agreed upon, Hosea 3 verse 5, Ezekiel 37 verse 24, and there's more prophecies, and you can see them in this video. Sorry, this video here. Study them. This is, if you watch any video on my channel, watch this one. Very important.
Both and. And Scripture interprets Scripture. I don't need to go through any type of gymnastics. I see references to the people, plural. That's not the Messiah. That's the people, plural, right? The Messiah is not mourning, okay? When I get to the end of Zechariah 12, and there's the mourning, Vasafdu alav, and they'll mourn over him as the mourning over firstborn, right? That's, and the house of David is mourning. The Messiah's not mourning. So he's...
Yes, they are mourning. The Messiah is mourning. He's a part of the house of David. Of course, right? We just described here in Zechariah 14, there's going to be mourning because there is going to be a war and people are going to, it says, the city shall be captured, the houses shall be plundered, and the women shall be That is a cause for mourning. We don't have to go and say, who should we be mourning about now? We need to be mourning about Jesus 2,000 years ago. What in the world, right? And if you want to see a more in-depth video of how I, debunk Dr. Brown's arguments regarding Zechariah 12:10, watch this video correcting Dr. Brown on Zechariah 12:10. This video that I just am presenting to you now is basically implementing everything that I spoke about in this video as much as I could when I called in live. And I said, look, if you call in live, this is how you debunk Dr. Brown and expose his hypocrisy. Well, that's exactly what I did when I called into his live show. So you can do it too. And I encourage you to call in and come up with your own arguments, right? You don't have to be Tovia Singer to put Dr. Brown in his place or anyone else, right? You can be just an average Jew, even a Noahide. You can, he's really not that intimidating. He's not that scary. And I would still love to do a debate with you, Dr. Michael Brown. The challenge is still there. Always open to that.
Separate from that, they're mourning over the slain Messiah. So context interprets itself. So in any case, I appreciate the question, but the phrasing of it was such to get an answer contrary to the actual truth, which we then fleshed out. But thank you for the call. I do appreciate it.
So, yeah, I think this was a slam dunk win. And please share this video with anybody who is still under the veil of Christianity, especially Jews who you know, because Dr. Brown, unfortunately, does have somewhat of an influence on, a lot, especially in these vulnerable times when a lot of people are looking for clarity, in this, very difficult time for Israel. And that's what this whole, video that he did, you can watch the original video. You can see it, if you're saying, oh, you cut up the video weird and whatever. You can watch the video on his channel. That's fine. I'll put the links to the videos for references with regards to, Zechariah 12:10 that I did earlier and Messianic prophecy. I'll put all those in the description. So check out those videos as well. And I really hope that this video has been a blessing to you all. Shalom Aleichem.